Near the end of the oldest book ever cut out of the Bible, a man is carried past the place where the sky bends down and touches the ground. He describes a wall, not a wall of stone, a wall built of crystal and ringed in cold fire, standing at the farthest edge of the world where no living thing walks, and then Enoch does something no other ancient writer dared to do. He crosses it. On the other side, he counts 7 regions, 7 separate realms folded into the ends of the earth, and for each one, he records the same detail. Whether anything lives there, some of them are empty, some of them are not. And the church that removed this book knew exactly which was which. And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I am about to tell you gets significantly darker. And I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete reconstruction of the 7 regions Enoch mapped beyond the frozen wall, the exact order he walked them in, the gate names the common translations quietly smoothed over, the full crossing passage rebuilt from the Jaz line by line. I put it all into a written document. It is linked below and the QR code is on your screen. Now let us continue. To understand what Enoch saw, you have to understand the world he thought he was standing on. It was not a globe. In the cosmology of Enoch, and in the older Babylonian sky maps, his book borrows from, the earth is a vast flat expanse. Above it the heavens rest like a dome. And at the far rim, where that dome bends down to meet the land, there are gates. The sun and the moon and the stars do not float freely. They travel through portals set into the edge of the world, rising through one and setting through another, driven by winds that also have their own doors. This is not a strange fringe idea invented later. It is written directly into the astronomical Book of Enoch, the long section scholars call the Book of the Luminaries, and it lines up almost mechanically with the Babylonian star texts that came centuries before it. In that section, Enoch is handed over to an angel named Uriel, who shows him the whole system, the 12 portals along the rim through which the winds pour, the gates in the east where the sun rises across the year, and the matching gates in the west where it sets. The separate schedule of the moon. Uriel even walks him through a calendar of 364 days, gate by gate, month by month, as if Enoch were being trained to run the machine himself. It reads less like a poem and more like a manual. Enoch is taken on a tour of this rim. Angels carry him to the places most people in the ancient world believed no human could reach and return from. The frozen north, where frost and hail and snow pour out of their own storehouses. The mountains of darkness at the western edge. And running around the whole outer boundary, the impassable cold, the place beyond which the ground itself gives out. That is the wall. That is the ice. And Enoch says he went past it. He had already seen a wall once before, earlier in the book, in the vision that nearly broke him. Lifted up into the heavens, he came to a great house whose walls were built like a mosaic of crystals, and the floor was crystal, and around it ran tongues of fire, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice at the same time. Inside that house stood a second house, greater than the first, and a throne of crystal within it. That was the throne room of God. So when Enoch reaches the crystal wall at the edge of the world, he already knows what crystal walls mean in his cosmos. They mean you are standing at a boundary that was built, not one that simply happened. For most of history, you were not supposed to be able to read any of this. The Book of Enoch was pulled out of the accepted scriptures. By the 4th century, the Western Church had decided it was too strange, too specific, too full of things it did not want taught, and it was left out of the canon. For more than 1,000 years in Europe, it was effectively gone. Yet it had not always been treated that way. One of the earliest church writers, Tertullian, openly defended it as genuine. And stranger still, a book that did make it into the New Testament quotes Enoch by name. The short letter of Jude, near the very end of the Bible, cites a prophecy of Enoch, word for word, a warning about the Lord coming with 10,000s of his holy ones to bring judgment. That line is lifted straight from the opening of the Book of Enoch. So a text the church later called too dangerous to keep was, at one point, scripture quoting scripture. It survived in only 2 places. In fragments buried in the desert, and in the mountains of Ethiopia, where the Ethiopian church never stopped treating it as holy and kept the complete text in an ancient language called Ge'ez. Then 2 things happened. In the 1700s, a Scottish traveler named James Bruce carried Ge'ez manuscripts of the complete Enoch back to Europe, and the book the West had erased was suddenly readable again. And in the 1940s, in caves above the Dead Sea, archaeologists found copies far older than anyone expected, Aramaic fragments of Enoch sitting among the Dead Sea Scrolls, more copies of this banned book than of many books that stayed in the Bible. Whatever Enoch was, the people closest to the source did not treat it as a minor text. They copied it, hid it, and protected it. And the strangest section is the one nobody reads on Sunday, the map, the 7 regions beyond the edge. Enoch does not present these regions as a neat list with numbers stamped on them. He walks. One place leads into the next, the way a person describes a journey they actually took rather than a chart they drew afterward. But when you follow his steps and lay them side by side, 7 distinct realms emerge at the ends of the earth. And the number itself is not an accident. Elsewhere in the same book, Enoch counts 7 great mountains, 7 rivers, and 7 vast islands at the outer parts of the world. 7 is the architecture of his cosmos. So here are the 7, in the order he reaches them, and the one question he answers for each. Is anyone home? The first region he reaches is the machinery of the sky itself. At the eastern rim, Enoch is shown the gates through which the sun climbs each morning, and at the western rim, the gates through which it goes down. He counts the portals for the moon on its own separate schedule. He is shown the doors of the winds and the storehouses, where the frost and the snow and the dew and the hail are kept sealed until they are released over the land. This is the region that turns the world. It is the engine room at the edge of everything, and it never stops moving. And Enoch is careful about one thing here. There are no inhabitants. This first realm is not a place where beings live. It is a place where forces are managed. The only figures present are the angels assigned to open and close the gates on time, keepers of a schedule rather than residents of a country. When one of those keepers fails, when a star comes out of its gate at the wrong hour, that is treated as a crime, and the punishment is waiting in a later region. So the first world beyond the ice is real, enormous, and empty of anything you could call a people. It is the clockwork. Hold on to that word, because it is the standard Enoch measures every other region against. Empty, running, and watched. The second region is where the tour stops feeling like astronomy and starts feeling like a warning. Enoch is led to a deep place, a chasm where pillars of heavenly fire fall downward without a floor to catch them, an opening that goes down further than his eyes can follow. Nearby run the great rivers of the world, and one of them is not water. It is a river of fire, flowing toward the west, feeding a place of endless burning. Around it stand mountains of such darkness that Enoch describes them as the setting place of the sky, the point where the whole vault of heaven comes down to rest against the ground. Nothing settles here either. This is not a home. It is a boundary of raw force, the seam between the ordered clockwork of the first region and the sealed prisons that come next. Enoch passes through it the way you would pass through a corridor between 2 very different rooms. But he notices something at its far end that changes the temperature of the entire account. A place with no sky above it and no solid ground beneath it. A void, empty in every direction, waste and horrible, in his own words. A place that should hold nothing at all. And in that nothing, he sees the first prisoners. The third region is a prison, and its inmates are not what any modern reader expects. Enoch sees 7 stars, not points of light, bound objects, chained together, burning like great mountains that have been ripped loose and thrown into the void and held there. He asks the angel with him what they are and why they are being punished. The answer is precise. These are stars that broke the schedule. They did not rise at their appointed time. They transgressed the command given to them at the very beginning, when every light in the sky was assigned its gate and its hour, and for that they are bound in this place until an immense sentence is complete. The length of that sentence is the detail that stays with you. Enoch is told they will be held for 10,000 years, a span tied to the weight of what they did. 7 of them, sealed in a region with no floor and no ceiling, burning and bound, waiting out a sentence longer than all of recorded human history laid end to end. Because in the cosmology of Enoch, the stars are not dead balls of rock and gas. They are treated as beings under law, with roles and duties and names, and some of them rebelled against the order they were given. This third realm is unmistakably inhabited. It holds prisoners that were once part of the very clockwork of the first region, keepers of time that refused to keep it, now torn out of the machine and locked away at the edge of the world. The empty engine room and the occupied prison are 2 ends of the same story. The ones who kept the schedule, and the ones who broke it. Before we move on to the next passage, stop for a second. What you just heard about the prison of the bound stars is the part that changes everything, but it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original Jez account. The 10,000 years. The names of the 7. It is all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. The QR code is on your screen. The 4th region is deeper and far worse than the 3rd, and Enoch makes the difference clear the moment he arrives. Beyond the prison of the stars, he is taken to another place, more terrible than the last, where the fire is not falling in neat pillars, but where the ground itself burns and splits open. This is the prison of the Watchers, and the Watchers are the beating heart of the entire book. In the older chapters of Enoch, 200 of these heavenly beings looked down on the daughters of men and wanted them. Their leader, Semyaza, made them all swear a binding oath so that no one could back out and leave him to take the blame alone. Then they descended onto the peak of Mount Hermon and took human wives, and they taught. That is the crime the book returns to again and again. One of them, Azazel, taught men how to forge swords and knives and shields, how to make war, and taught women the arts of paint and ornament and seduction. Others taught sorcery and the cutting of roots and the breaking of spells. One taught the signs of the sun in the sky, one taught the course of the moon, one taught the reading of the stars, and another the meaning of the clouds, and another the signs of the earth itself, a whole curriculum of forbidden sciences for foretelling the future and for bending it, knowledge that was never meant to cross the boundary from heaven into human hands. The book does not gesture at this vaguely. It lists the teachers by name, each one paired with the exact craft he handed down, the way an inventory lists what went missing from a vault, and names the man who carried it out the door. The children born from those unions were the giants, the Nephilim, beings of enormous size and appetite who devoured everything men produced and then turned on men themselves. When the crops and herds of men finally ran out, the giants turned on the people who had been feeding them, and then they turned on one another, and the whole earth filled with blood, and with the cry of every living thing that suffered under their weight. The violence that followed was one of the reasons the ancient text gives for the flood that wiped the world clean, and the reason the highest heavens finally moved against the ones who had started all of it. The leaders were bound and thrown into the deep places to await final judgment. And here in the map, Enoch stands at the door of that prison. He is shown where they are held, sealed in darkness, not destroyed but contained, kept for a day of reckoning that had not yet come when he saw them, and, by the logic of the book, still has not come. This realm is inhabited by the most dangerous prisoners in the entire cosmology. Not stars that missed a schedule, but intelligences that crossed into the human world, corrupted it from the inside, and left a scar the tradition says has never fully healed. If the third region is a jail, the fourth is the deepest cell in it, and the difference between them is the difference between breaking a law and breaking a world. The fifth region is the one that touches every human being who has ever lived. Enoch is carried to a great mountain far in the west, and inside it he finds hollow places, deep and smooth and beautifully carved, separated from one another by walls of rock. He asks what they are for, and the angel Raphael, one of the holy ones who watches over the spirits of men, tells him plainly, "These are the chambers where the spirits of the dead are gathered and held until the day of judgment. Not heaven, not a lake of fire. A waiting place, divided into sections, where the dead are kept until they are called." And the division is the striking part. The dead are not all kept together in one crowd. Enoch describes separate hollows for separate kinds of people. One for the righteous, and in it there is a spring of bright water, so that the just do not wait in thirst and darkness. Others are set aside for different classes of the wicked, sorted by what they did in life and whether they were ever punished for it before they died. And one hollow holds the murdered, whose spirits still cry out, still lifting their voices in complaint against the ones who killed them, exactly as the blood of the first murdered man was said to cry out from the ground. 4 hollow places, the account says, are cut into that single mountain, and they are dark by design, so that each spirit inside can see nothing beyond the walls of its own chamber. One is set apart for the righteous. The rest are divided among the wicked by the exact nature of what they did and whether justice ever reached them while they lived. It is a sorting facility for human souls, built into the edge of the world, and it is very much inhabited. Every person Enoch had ever known, every person who lived before him, and by the plain logic of the text, every person since, passes through this mountain. Of all 7 regions, this is the one Enoch is quietly telling you is waiting for you. The 6th region is the center of the whole design, even though it sits out at the edge of the world. Enoch is shown 7 mountains made of precious stones. 3 of them range toward the east and 3 toward the south, and among them one in the middle that rises higher than all the rest, like a great seat lifted above the horizon. And it is a seat. Enoch is told, this is the mountain where the great and holy one, the Lord of glory, the eternal King, will sit when he comes down to visit the earth in goodness. The 7 jeweled mountains ringed around it are each described by their stone, one of colored crystal, one that shines like pearl, one like a stone of healing, arranged in their places like the setting around a single central gem. And that central mountain is a throne carved out of the landscape itself, and kept empty, waiting, lifted higher than all the others, so that whoever comes to sit on it will look out over the entire rim of the world at once. Beside that throne mountain stands a tree unlike any other Enoch has seen, more beautiful and more fragrant than anything he has words for. Its leaves and blossoms and wood unfading. He asks about it, and he is told that no creature is permitted to touch it until the great judgment, the day when everything is set right and everything is punished. After that day, its fruit will be given as food to the chosen and the righteous, and the tree itself will be transplanted to the holy place, beside the house of God, the King of the ages. This is the tree of life, held in reserve, fenced off until its time. So the sixth realm is not inhabited in the ordinary sense. No people live on the throne mountain. But it is not empty and idling like the clockwork either. It is occupied by expectation. It is reserved for the one being the entire journey has been circling around from the beginning. It is the seat left waiting for its rightful occupant. The seventh region is the one the whole tour has been building toward. Beyond everything else, past the eastern ends of the earth, carried over a great red sea in darkness and past the burning angels stationed to guard the road, Enoch finally arrives at a garden. It is the same far country where, in another part of his long journey, he counts 7 great mountains and 7 rivers and 7 wide islands set into the outer edge of the world, the same sevenfold rim that frames every region he has been shown. The garden sits at the innermost corner of it, the last room at the end of the map. In it grow trees of a kind he has never seen anywhere in all his travels, and at the heart of the garden stands one tree lifted above the others. He asks what it is, and he is told, it is the tree of knowledge, the tree of wisdom, and its fruit is the fruit that the first man and the first woman ate, the fruit that opened their eyes and had them driven out of this very garden long ages before Enoch was born. This is paradise, kept at the edge of the world, still standing, still guarded. And that raises the quiet question the whole book leaves hanging in the air. The garden was not destroyed when humanity was expelled from it. It was fenced off. It was set at the far rim, past the ice, past the fire, past the prisons, and kept intact. Enoch is one of the only figures in the entire tradition who is shown standing at its edge and living to describe what he saw. Whether anything now dwells inside it, he does not fully say. But the tree is still growing, and the place is still watched, which tells you the garden was never abandoned and never leveled. It was closed. There is a difference. A ruin is something you walk away from. A closed gate is something you intend to open again. And notice what all 7 regions have in common, because it is the thing the book is quietly insisting on. Not one of these places is out of reach because it is simply far away in the way we mean the word. Each one is out of reach because a boundary was placed around it on purpose. A wall of crystal, a belt of impassable cold, a river of fire, a sea crossed only in darkness, burning angels posted at the road. Every barrier Enoch describes is a barrier that was built and is being maintained by someone, which means someone intends for these places to stay sealed away from the world of the living, and intends for that seal to hold until a single appointed day and not one moment before it. So walk back through the 7 and answer the question the title asked. Which of these worlds are inhabited? The first, the clockwork of the gates and the winds, is empty of residents, run by keepers alone. The second, the mountains of darkness and the river of fire, is a corridor of raw force where nothing settles and nothing lives. Those 2 are unoccupied. But the third holds the 7 bound stars, sealed for 10,000 years. The fourth holds the watchers, chained in the deep, waiting on a judgment that has not arrived. The fifth holds the gathered dead, every human soul sorted into its hollow in the mountain. 3 regions, all of them prisons or holding places, and all of them full. The sixth holds a throne kept ready for an occupant who has not yet come to sit on it. And the 7th holds a garden that was closed but never emptied, its tree of wisdom still tended behind the gate. Line them up and a pattern appears that becomes hard to unsee. Enoch is not describing a handful of scattered, unrelated myths. He is describing a single structured world, one flat expanse with a built outer rim, and set into that rim a series of chambers, one after another, some for machinery, some for prisoners, some for the waiting dead, and at the far end a throne and a garden held in reserve.